everybody, welcome to our Inspirational Authorship class. I'm Joyce Ross from Kindness is Key Training and Publishing, Inc. And Patricia's with us here too, but we're in separate places tonight. So I'm in Victoria at my family's place, and Patricia's at our studio in Delta, British Columbia. So in a minute, she'll just come on and say hello to you. We have a big class tonight. Again, we're probably going to have an hour of presentation, but I broke it up. So we've got 3 different topics, which I'll explain in a minute when I bring up the PowerPoint. Patricia will be watching the control panel. So if you have any questions, just let Patricia know what you'd like to, me to answer or her to answer. And she will interrupt the programming and ask me the questions. So I'm just going to put Patricia up so she can say hi to everybody. And here we go.
So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the webinar series. And yes, so any questions during the slide presentation, just type it in the chat, and as soon as Joy gives me a chance, I will ask the question. So we'll see you in about an hour.
Sounds great. Thanks, Patricia. So I'm going to go back to me presenting, and I'm going to bring up our SlideShare program and get right into the lesson. So today is February 16th. This is our second lesson in grammar. So we started the 8 parts of speech last week. We're going to do part 2 this week, and we're going to look at the adverb and the preposition. We'll also be looking at some punctuation. We'll be looking at the interrobang, the semicolon, the colon, and the em dash. And we'll look at how to tighten and strengthen your prose using vivid action verbs and graphic adjectives. It's going to be a fun class, you'll see. So here's my new grammar dog. So he says, misspelled words, incorrect punctuation. I will not eat this homework. In case we haven't met, I'm Grammar Dog. Not me, this guy in the picture. So English grammar rules are based on the 8 parts of speech. So that's the noun, the verb, the pronoun, the adjective, the adverb, the preposition, the interjection, and the conjunction. You can see them there on the screen. In the previous webinar, we explored the functions of the noun, the verb, the pronoun, and the adjective. In this grammar lesson, we'll study the adverb and the preposition. Being aware of the functions of the 8 parts of speech will help you to construct clearer sentences that are correctly punctuated. That's very, very important. So let's quickly review the previous lesson. So a noun is a word used to name a person, animal, place, thing, or an abstract idea. If this is your first time coming into a grammar class, you can find last week's on our website at HEARTMINDEffect.com, which I'll give you again later in the webinar. A verb is a word used to convey an action, occurrence, or a state of being, and verbs basically tell us what nouns are doing or experiencing. And a pronoun can replace a noun or another pronoun, and there's a list of them there. I know you can all read, but it's basically me, you, her, him, it, us, etc. And an adjective describes, identifies, or quantifies a noun or pronoun. So I want to mention again that you can get a lot more information in a longer class on those 4 parts of speech on the website under the first grammar lesson, which was 2 weeks ago. So let's explore the adverb. The function of this part of speech is easy to understand, so you're going to like this part. So an adverb adds information about a verb. So it's adding information about how, when, where, in what manner, or to what extent. So here's some examples. So here's an example of an adverb adding information about when. She enrolled immediately. So you can see there that the adverb immediately modifies the verb enrolled. Here's one for where. Let's go outside. The adverb outside modifies the verb go. How? He walked quickly. The adverb quickly modifies the verb walked. In what manner? He ran barefoot. The adverb barefoot modifies the verb ran. And to what extent? He ran far. The adverb far modifies the verb ran. So you can see that these adverb examples that we've looked at They're modifying information about the verb. So how, when, where, in what manner, and to what extent. Pretty simple stuff. Now here's something you may not know. An adverb can also modify an adjective, another adverb, or a whole sentence. So here's some examples. Shannon has a very pretty face. The adverb very modifies the adjective pretty because it's adjectives that modify nouns. Adverbs modify verbs. He spoke extremely quickly. They should probably put my name there. Joy spoke extremely quickly. The adverb extremely modifies the adverb quickly. So adverb, adverb. Fortunately, nobody noticed. The adverb fortunately modifies the whole sentence. Pretty easy stuff. So let's explore the preposition. We're going to have fun with this part of speech, so be prepared to smile. The preposition shows the relationship between a subject and an object. So the subject we learned in other lessons is the person or thing performing an action, and the object is the thing or person receiving the action. So grammarians, when they're talking about prepositions, they would say that the preposition indicates the temporal, spatial, or logical relationship of its object to the rest of the sentence. So they're kind of working backwards in our examples because you know, the last part of our sentences are all objects. So here we go. The money is on the table. So we know spatially where the money is. The box is beneath the counter. The broom is leaning against the wall. Let's meet before noon. So there we have a temporal example. Throw it into the trash. The chair is beside the fridge, and you can see that the bolded words are your prepositions. She held her hand over the candle. Probably not for very long. She read the book during class. My sister is at the store. You look like your mother. So those are examples of prepositions. Don't get too hung up on knowing exactly this definition. Just get a feeling for what a preposition is. So the most common prepositions are listed there. So they're about, above, across, after, against, etc. Going down to the bottom where we have like under, underneath, until, up, upon, with, within, and without. So everybody knows that I put these courses up on our website at heartmindeffect.com under the writing course material. So if you want to take more time to read any of these lessons or to go over anything I'm saying, you can always review them. They're up 24 hours after our class. I just do a bit of editing and up they go. So you've likely been taught that you shouldn't end a sentence with a preposition. For fun, I'll introduce you to the men responsible for this somewhat ridiculous grammar rule. So John Dryden, an 18th century English poet, playwright, and literary critic, criticized another writer, Ben Jonson, for ending a sentence with a preposition. So this is kind of like one of those situations where people just get a little carried away. One person says one thing and everybody else starts, following. So the notion that a sentence should not end with a preposition was cemented among grammar purists when Robert Louth, I think that's how you say his name, published a short introduction to English grammar in 1762. And Louth was a bishop of the Church of England and an Oxford professor of poetry, and his grammar book ended up being used in classrooms until the early 1900s. So that's why, all of us in Canada and in the US learned not to end a sentence with a preposition. So apparently both Dryden and Louth were guided by the idea that the English language should follow the rules for Latin, which does not dangle prepositions. So you wouldn't end a sentence with it. That would leave it dangling. And you may have heard this or may not of Sir Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill took exception to this rule and is famous for penning, "This is the kind of nonsense up with which I will not put." So I ended in a preposition, had some fun with the English language there. And everybody knows that Churchill was the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom from 1940 to 1945. So it's kind of fun. I always wanted to I always wondered about who it is that makes up these rules. And so there's one person we can identify. Well, a couple of people involved in that story. So I agree with Sir Spencer Churchill. For instance, the sentence, "What did you step on?" would seem silly, written as "On what did you step?" Nobody talks like that. So you don't write like that. I'd like to know where they're from would be awkward, written as I'd like to know from where they came. And this one's really fun. That dress isn't paid for would seem strange, written as paid for that dress is not. It's also acceptable to end a sentence with what's called a phrasal verb, such as cheer up. If a grammar catcher tries to lock you up, tell the fussbot to take off. However, I recommend dropping superfluous prepositions, i.e. ones that don't add meaning. For instance, the preposition at is not needed in the sentence, where are you at? Now, I don't often hear people, my age, which would be 39, I guess, using at the end of a sentence, like where are you at? But I do hear it in kids, so they don't need to use that. An unnecessary preposition should also be dropped from the middle of sentences. For instance, off the floor says the same thing as off of the floor. There's no need to include the word of. It's not improper if you do, just you don't need to. You can also lose the of in the sentence, Mom's outside of the door. Just write, Mom's outside the door. Less words equals less criticism from the economy of words catchers. Everything's catchers now because he's a dog. It's grammar dog, right? Yeah. Okay, there you go. Congratulations. You've survived learning 6 of the 8 parts of speech. And as a reward for not falling asleep, here's a grammar joke. This is one of my favorites. The past, present, and future walked into a bar. It was tense. My silly cat thinks everything's hilarious. Okay, we're going to move on to tighten and strengthen your prose with vivid action verbs and graphic adjectives. But before we do, I'm just going to check in with Patricia. Patricia, have you got any questions in the comment bar that I need to answer?
Not yet.
No, we're okay, so I'll move on then. So an action verb expresses what the subject of a clause is doing physically or mentally. So this is action, right? What they're doing physically or mentally. Pretty easy. So here's some examples. Grammar dog posed. You can see the highlighted word there. Posed is your action verb for the cameras. Silly cat asked to be in the picture. Grammar dog denied her request. Silly cat photobombed the picture. The photographer cropped silly cat from the pic. Silly cat stomped her paws and meowed. Grammar dog ignored her tantrum. Later, he prepared silly cat's favorite meal, tuna and rice. So all those highlighted words are action verbs. There's the photobomb picture. I think that's cute. I just love that cat and dog. Okay, so earlier in this lesson, we learned that an adverb adds information about a verb, an adjective, another adverb, or a whole sentence, right? So here's a tip. Adverbs often end in ly. So that's one of the ways that you can recognize them. So here's you'll see that the adverbs are, so they're modifying the verb, right? So the adverbs are italicized and the verbs are bolded. So pretty easy stuff. Grammar dog happily posed for the camera. So we're getting a little bit more information about how grammar dog feels about posing for the camera. Silly cat very eagerly asked to be in the picture. Grammar dog very quickly denied her request. Silly cat spitefully photobombed the picture. So earlier we didn't know what kind of attitude silly cat was having when she photobombed the picture, but now we know she was being spiteful. So that's a really good time when you would add information into an adverb, or include an adverb with a verb, is when you want to add more information, but not necessarily all the time. There's other alternatives, but I just want to draw attention to that. So we do get more information about silly cat's motive there. And then the photographer expertly cropped silly cat from the picture, so we know he's an expert. So here's a fun saying that Patricia and I use a lot when we're editing. The most valuable of all talents is that of never using 2 words when one will do. So we're going to look at this rule from an advice from Thomas Jefferson in this lesson, and we're going to be looking at it more in next week's lesson as well, because it's a pretty important saying. So the most valuable of all talents is that of never using 2 words when one will do. So here's a tip. Very is an overused and often unnecessary adverb. Whenever you see the word very, stop. It's like a big red stop sign, or it should be when you're editing your prose. Don't worry about it when you're writing, but when you're editing. So here's some examples of why I say that. Silly cat very eagerly asked to be in the picture. Well, if we jump down to the example without very, silly cat eagerly asked to be in the picture, I think we can get the message. She's eager to be in the picture. We don't have to say she very eagerly asked to be in the picture. Eagerly will do. Grammar dog very quickly denied her request. Again, go down to the last line. Grammar dog quickly denied her request. We already know that he was quick to answer back. We don't need to know that it was very quickly. So, I'd lose the very in both of those examples. Here's another tip. Choose vivid action verbs over adverb plus verb. So you can see here in this example, silly cat very eagerly asked. So we've got adverb, adverb, verb, because verb is asked, right? That's the action. Very and eagerly is just telling you more about the verb. So silly cat very eagerly asked to be in the picture. Now, if you go down to the second set of examples, example with vivid action verbs, we see that silly cat begged to be in the picture. Only need one word. We just need a powerful, vivid action verb, one that just kind of shrinks up what we're trying to say and gives a little bit more punch to it. So very eagerly asked is probably begged. You could choose a different vivid action word, but very eagerly is not strong. Here we've got another one. Grammar dog very quickly denied her request. So again, very quickly is really weak. So grammar dog refused her request. Look how many fewer words we're using. In the grammar dog one especially, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the first sentence. Not really getting a very powerful message there. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the second. So we lost 2 words and we've got a more powerful statement. So just watch for those. Here's another tip. Vivid action verbs link writer with reader through sensory recall. And by sensory recall, I mean things that we remember through sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste. So each of the following action verbs elicits a distinct sensory perception. And I just want you to think about which of your senses are stimulated when I'm reading this list of words, because I'm going to read the whole list. So walk, saunter, stride, strut, swagger, march, stomp. Now for me, when I'm looking at walk or hearing the word walk or reading the word walk or saunter or stride or strut or swagger, I'm really just getting a visual. I'm using my sight sense. But when I get to march and stomp, now I'm getting a little recall based on sound and sight. So I would think that march and stomp are really good words if I'm trying to talk about someone, getting mad or leaving a room, because now my reader is going to be thinking march and stomp. So they're going to go sight and sound are involved in the story. The next one's fun too. So we've got flow, gush, gurgle, spurt, squirt, and trickle. So any of those could involve both your sight and your sound, depending on what experiences you have had. And then we have tease, scoff, sneer, jeer, taunt. I think you're getting the picture, so I'm not going to keep talking about them. Shine, glitter, sparkle, dazzle. Think, worry, fret, debate, consider, ponder. Smile, laugh, grin, beam, giggle. They all evoke different kind of images in our minds based on what we recall from our senses. So here's another excellent saying, which is good writing is supposed to evoke sensation in the reader, not the fact that it is raining, but the feeling of being rained upon. And it was funny, I looked up some information about Edgar Lawrence Doctorow, I think is how you say that. And He's an American novelist, editor, and professor, and he's best known for his work of historical fiction. And he wrote 12 novels. I don't know them all. 3 volumes of short fiction, and a stage drama. And his award-winning novels include Ragtime, Billy Bathgate, and The March. But what was fun for me in creating this slide was all the different feelings that you can get from the rain. Because I see that, that young couple, they're just, kind of loving it, the romantic aspect of it, I would say, and just the fun of being in the rain, maybe breaking what they would normally do is run out of the rain. So together they're just enjoying it. And then we've got the kids, well, we know they don't care. They're just having fun, and they're barefoot. So I'm thinking their weather's nice and warm. And then we've got this person over under the tree, and that kind of gray hinge to the day makes it feel a little bit lonelier. So E.L. Doctorow was really smart in what he had to say. And here's an interesting point. I want to go down to where I've written about Edgar Lawrence Doctorow, and you'll see that I've got acclaimed American novelist, editor, and professor. Well, that was supposed to be the end of my sentence. But because I started the next sentence with E.L. Doctorow, because I wanted to draw, attention to the fact that he goes by E.L. Doctorow instead of Edgar Lawrence, it looks like I've tried to write that as one entire sentence, which I caught in editing, but I left it as an example for you. So it looks like it reads, acclaimed American novelist, editor, and professor E.L. Doctorow is best known for his works of historical fiction, which reads perfectly fine to me. However, that's not what was in my intention. Pretty funny, eh? Okay, so vivid action verbs add dimension to your story by evoking feelings in the reader through word pictures. So in the following examples, note how the green action verbs create more vivid word pictures than the blue. So it's pretty easy. You guys can read, but you'll get the idea. So jump is just, whoever thinks about someone jumps, okay, great. But if you say leap, you can see this is some energy into it. If you say parachute, there's like way more energy into it, or spring or vault. So someone springs off a couch, they're in a huge hurry to get going. If somebody jumps off the couch, yeah, they're in a hurry, but maybe not such a big hurry. Vaulting would be even a stronger action verb. Throw, so you can throw a ball, you can hurl it, you can catapult it, lob it, fling it. You can cry, or you can weep, bawl, sob, or howl. Like, they all have different meanings. So when you're writing, you really want to choose the exact word that gets into the reader's mind what you're trying to convey about the person that you're writing about or the situation you're writing about. So spend some time and think about your action verbs and your verbs. And if you're consistently use the same ones, well, go to your thesaurus and look up some different ones and try to mix it up a little. Make your writing interesting and, do a little bit of learning. So here we've got hate, despise, abhor, detest, loathe, shout, bellow, scream, bark, roar, laugh. We've got all kinds of different laughs there. Chuckle, chortle, snicker, guffaw, giggle. Think, someone can sit around and think, or they can consider, ponder, contemplate, mull something over in their mind. You can watch, or you can observe, or you can survey, or you can examine, or you can scrutinize. You can take something, or you can grab it, seize it, steal it, appropriate it. You can sit down, or you can flop down, drop down, perch, collapse, or park your butt. And you can smile, beam, grin, smirk, or you can frown, grimace, sneer, glower, scowl, or you can annoy, aggravate, irk, provoke, irritate, peeve. Lots of words that we can find just by going through our thesaurus and thinking about which words are most going to portray what we're trying to, the image we're trying to put into a person's mind to evoke the kind of feelings we want our readers to have. So actually a very, very important lesson, this vivid action verbs. Oh, here's Silly Cat again. Irritate, peeve. I just remembered a joke I heard at the dog catchers convention. I don't have pet peeves. I have whole kennels of irritation. He's a cute cat. So we're just about done with vivid action verbs, but I'm just going to say a few more things. So action verbs that end in ing are considered weaker than their shorter verb forms. So this isn't always true. It's just one of those things I want to draw your attention to, but there's nothing wrong with ending action verbs that end in ing. Sometimes we're trying to break up our rhythm in our sentences so that they're not all structured the same. So ing, is important to use, but just be aware of this little tip. So he began prowling the area is a weaker sentence than he prowled the area. So be aware of that. Stop shouting is weaker than don't shout. And he started crying is weaker than he cried. Just saying he cried. And that's one of the ones that really strikes home for me about this lesson is he started crying. So it's like you get bad news and he started crying. So if the person had written, he heard about the tragedy and started crying. But it would be stronger to say, when he heard about the tragedy, he cried. It's just so much stronger. So I really pay attention to that one when I'm writing about crying. And weak, he began jumping and hollering. Strong, he jumped and hollered, which is actually a really good example too, because there's a lot more energy in he jumped and hollered than there is in he began jumping and hollering. Sounds like the Easter Bunny and having a temper tantrum. Okay, so here's another tip. We're going to talk about graphic adjectives, but I want to go back to Patricia before I do that and just see if there's any questions yet. Patricia, do you have any questions for me?
No questions. We had a little bit of people felt that they couldn't see, or not felt, but they felt oh my goodness, that's the wrong word. Anyway, they couldn't see it. It was blurry, but it must have been an internet connection because mine was fine all along.
And it was only one person who couldn't see?
Two people.
Oh, I wonder why that would be happening.
We're back to being okay. It seems to go in and out, so I'm not sure. Mine is clear. So far, it's been clear all the time.
Okay. I will say to you that when the video goes up tomorrow on the website, on our website, which is heartmindeffect.com, under the writing lessons, they will all be clear. And if they're not, we'll be able to put things in, to put, new graphics up. So, but thanks for letting us know that. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm rocking in my chair. My camera's, doing something. Anyways, okay, so we're going to talk about graphic adjectives. And we all remember that an adjective describes, identifies, or quantifies a noun or pronoun. So here's a tip. Choose a graphic adjective over an adverb plus an adjective. Okay, this will make more sense in a minute when I show you the examples. So here's some examples with an adverb and adjective. Shannon has a very pretty face. The adverb very modifies the adjective pretty. But if we go down to the example with graphic adjective and noun, we got Shannon has a gorgeous face. So gorgeous is now the adjective gorgeous, which is a graphic adjective, modifies the noun, which is face. So, and even better is Shannon is gorgeous. You don't even need the noun in that sentence. So then back up to example with adverb and adjective, we have this is an extremely important matter. So the adverb extremely modifies the adjective important. But it's way stronger to just say this is a vital matter. Matter being your noun. So it's really hard to pay attention to these rules and tips when you're writing, but it's not hard to pay attention to these rules when you're editing. So that's when you really care, is when you're editing. So here's a tip. Experienced writers avoid humdrum phrases and adjectives. So anything that's boring, trite, overused, try to get it out of your writing unless you're trying to write, like portray that someone's boring or something's boring, then you might want to. But otherwise, you want to keep your readers interested in envisioning what you're writing about. So in the following examples, note how the green adjectives create more vivid word pictures than the blue. So here we go. So cute, something's cute. Oh, what a cute dog. Well, way more vivid to say, or graphic to say adorable or darling. And, say something's ugly. Sometimes that might be the strongest word and you will use it, but way more graphic to say hideous, unsightly, or repulsive. And to say someone's fascinating or something's fascinating, it's way more fun to say that someone's charismatic or entrancing or spellbinding. And, pretty gets way overused, so better to use alluring or captivating. And then, of course, scary. We've got creepy, menacing, forbidding. Forbidding, is that right? I might not be saying that right. Chilling. And then we've got under mean, we've got malicious, despicable, nasty, cruel. Way stronger words. Under nice, we've got pleasant, charming, cordial. Cordial is never one I think to use. It's a great word. Under tall, we've got lanky, lofty, towering, looming. I like the looming one. Brave, we've got valiant, plucky, which is a fun word. I just like that word, plucky, fearless or audacious. And under clean, we've got immaculate, unsoiled, sterile, shipshape. plump, we've got curvy, pudgy, podgy, flabby, tubby, stout. Don't anybody call me those things. We'll be, having words, more words. Slim, we've got wiry, svelte, willowy. I like willowy, bony, and angular. And old, we've got ancient, time-worn, antique, and primitive. Don't want to be referred to that way either. And then we've got under silly, frivolous, mindless, idiotic, and inane. So, use your thesaurus. That's what it's right in Word and in your PowerPoint. It's right there. Use it. Have some fun. Now we're going to move on to the punctuation dance. But before we do that, Patricia, do we have any questions? And how are going for people with this being able to see the screen clearly?
We're okay. Oceana had to connect on her cell phone because it wasn't working on her laptop, I guess. And Arnold says that his screen has been fine from the start, just like mine. So I'm not sure. It must be a connection issue.
Hi, Arnold. Hi, Oceana. Glad you guys are with us.
And Marla and Joseph.
Hi, Marla. Hi, Joseph.
And others in the background. They haven't given us their names. Say hello, everyone.
Yeah, people have to tell us who they are. Okay, so we're going to have a bit of a review because we did punctuation in the last webinar. So I'm just going to quickly go over the ones we've studied. So we studied a period, and we know that it indicates a mild command or an indirect question. And we looked at the question mark, which indicates a direct question. If you use a question mark, it means an answer is expected. So you don't use them when you're just making a comment that might sound like a question. And an exclamation mark indicates a sense of urgency, strong emotion, or an imperative, which is just a forceful, confident command. So we don't want to overuse the exclamation mark. So now we're going to learn about the Interrobang, which is just so fun to know about. And it indicates that a question is being asked in a surprised manner. And we're also going to learn about the semicolon, which indicates a pause and says to the reader that two main clauses are related. So if you're going to put two clauses together and make one great big long sentence, you better make sure that they're related. A colon indicates that the information following is related to the words before the colon. So you see a colon, it means the words that are following are related to the word or words beforehand. And we're going to look at this in more detail. Don't panic. And an M dash indicates also, like a colon, indicates that the following information is related. However, an M dash is more dramatic. So let's look at the Interrobang. So it looks like an exclamation point superimposed on a question mark. And it indicates that a question is being asked in a surprise manner, like down below you'll see I've got, what? Did I hear you correctly? So most style books recommend that an author use only one terminal punctuation mark. So this presents a bit of a conundrum when a question is asked in surprise. So the Interrobang, negates you having to choose between a question mark and an exclamation point. So it's kind of fun that they go together. And however, I wouldn't use it in formal writing. So I wouldn't use it at university or in business writing, except for, informal business writing. So most keyboards don't have an Interrobang key, which is why probably at least 50% of you don't even have a clue, well, till now, didn't know that it existed. So really easy to find. You find it under your symbol tab. So first of all, you hit insert over here on where the red is. Click here. 1, 2, click the symbol. 3, there's a little drop-down menu here. So you look for the Interrobang under general punctuation. And 4, you click on it. And 5, click insert. So there you go. That's how you get an Interrobang. And then, of course, you can copy and cut it and paste it and do all kinds of things later, but it's always there. Here's the fun thing. So an English professor wrote the following sentence on the chalkboard. This doesn't have anything to do with Interrobangs. I just like it. So an English professor wrote the following sentence on the chalkboard. A woman without her man is nothing. He then asked his students to correctly punctuate the sentence. Here's how the males punctuated it. A woman without her man is nothing. Here's how the females punctuated it. A woman, colon, without her, man is nothing. Battle of the sexes is still going strong. Seriously, does anyone think that punctuation joke is funny? See, I used an Interrobang and a really funny looking orangutan, I think. My silly cat does. You can count that cat to laugh at everything. Okay, we're moving on to semicolons. So semicolon indicates a pause and that two
Joy?
yeah.
Okay, so Interrobang. So you actually want us to use that symbol?
Yes.
Because I've seen it just separated, not together.
Well, the problem is that the grammar purists tell you you can't use 2 punctuation points at the end of a sentence. So no 2 terminals. So when you and I would do that, we would go, oh, she's it's a surprise question, and you and I have done that. But now that we know about the Interrobang, I think that it's better to use the Interrobang.
Okay.
Yeah. I know, it means we have to edit the books. Is that why you're giving me that little thought?
That's what I'm thinking.
It's okay. With time, dear girlfriend, with time. Okay, so semicolon indicates a pause and that 2 main clauses are related. So it has a subject-verb component. So someone doing the action, right? Someone's doing an action, or a thing's doing an action. And it also, a main clause could also stand alone as a sentence. So I don't want people to get confused about all this terminology, because it's grammar, and it's really the only way you can learn it is to learn some of it. But a clause could be a whole sentence, right? Because it has a verb and subject component. We know that a complete sentence has a subject and a verb. And you can put 2 of these clauses together to make one big long sentence. So kind of fun. So here, let's just look at it. So, my silly cat thinks my jokes are hilarious. Semicolon. She laughs at everyone else's too. So that's 2 clauses because they could stand alone. We could go, my silly cat thinks my jokes are hilarious. Period. She laughs at everyone else's too. Period. 2 complete sentences still make sense. But when you put them together, the reader goes, okay, this what she's about to say now is kind of a continuation, and it relates back to what she's already said. So it's semicolons are fun, and people way underuse semicolons. Like, we should be using them a lot more. George appeared angry. Semicolon. He might have found my joke offensive. So George appeared angry, period. He might have found, new sentence, he might have found my joke offensive. Both would be correct. But the semicolon just makes it, like, I can see these how we think, right? Little thought comes in, little thought comes in. So George appeared angry. He might have found my joke offensive. So don't be afraid of the semicolon. It's a great great punctuation mark. So here's a tidbit. The past tense of may is might. I'm going to be talking a lot more about these in later lessons, because right now we're still getting through the 8 parts of speech. But it's correct to say, my silly cat might have had too much catnip last night. It's incorrect to say, my silly cat may have had too much catnip last night, because you're talking in the past tense, so you would use might, not may. Just a tidbit. Okay, so back to semicolon. So semicolon, not a comma, should precede a conjunctive adverb or a traditional phrase that links 2 main clauses. Does that sound Greek to you guys? Because it's a big mouthful for me, so don't worry about it. I'm going to break it down. So conjunctive adverbs are words such as however, therefore, furthermore, and meanwhile. So, you know, I'd like to go to the store with you. However, really, do we have to take your car? Or whatever, something like that. So those are conjunctive adverbs. That's just what the grammarians call them. A transitional phase, like it's a transition, right? So it's going to transition the reader somewhere. So where it's a phrase, it's going to transition you somewhere else. So transition phrase functions like conjunctive adverbs and include, for example, as a result, in other words, in the meantime, etc. So it's not really important that you remember what these are called. It's just important that you recognize the type of word that they are and how they function. So conjunctive adverb example. My silly cat whines when she smells fish, semicolon. Therefore, I only cook poultry and meat. This is one spoiled cat. So what's important here is that if we didn't have therefore I only cook poultry and meat, we wouldn't really get the full meaning of what Grammar Dog's trying to say. So my silly cat whines when she smells fish. I could have also written it as a result, I only cook poultry and meat. These 2 sentences are definitely connected. But when you put the therefore in, now you need to deal with the semicolon, then the therefore, and the comma is optional actually. Therefore, I only cook poultry. But when you do a transitional phrase, such as, for example, as a result, in other words, in the meantime, you have to put a comma. So you'll see the note on the bottom. The comma after the conjunctive adverb, therefore, is optional. The comma following the traditional phrase as a transitional phrase as a result in the second example is not optional. We're going to talk a lot more about commas next week because commas are, every editing person's, nightmare. So, or they won't be after my super duper comma class that Patricia and I are going to give to you because it's clears up a lot of it. So here's one of the things you have to remember. If you use something like therefore, furthermore, etc., you can choose whether or not to add the comma. If you use a transitional phrase such as result, for example, in other words, stick in a comma before you say the rest of your sentence or write the rest of your sentence. Okay, we're going to have two parts of this semicolon lesson, part of the lesson coming up right now. So a semicolon can be used to separate items in a list when one or more of the elements contains a comma. Now here's a really good example. So while in Canada, George visited North Bay, Ontario, Jasper, Alberta, and Comox, British Columbia. Okay, that's really clear. You can see exactly where George went. See how confusing this sentence becomes without the semicolons. Well, in Canada, George visited North Bay, Ontario, Jasper, Alberta, and Comox, British Columbia. So the only thing we're really sure of is that Comox is in British Columbia. Anybody who's not familiar with Canada will think that he's gone to all bunch of places instead of just the three. So that's why it becomes really handy to use a semicolon in a list. Here's the same sentence. So a semicolon can be used to separate lists. We've already said that. So we have the same example there. And all I wanted to tell you here is that it's the end. So we've got, well, in Canada, George visited North Bay, Ontario, Jasper, Alberta, and Comox, British Columbia. So in the first example, I don't have a comma after the end. In the second example, I do have a comma after the end. So once you know the grammar rules, you can break them or not. So in the olden days, we always put a comma after the AND. And nowadays, we make a choice. So it's not wrong if you put it there, and it's not wrong if you don't put it there. I think the second example without the comma after the word end is less cluttered, looks cleaner, but it's not wrong either way. So we have any more on the semicolon coming up? Okay, so this is the end of our semicolon lesson. So you now know that semicolons are terrific for letting readers know that two main clauses are related and for separating lists where one or more of the elements contains a comma. So we're going to move on to colons and em dashes, but I'm going to check in with Patricia before we do that. Patricia, do we have any questions?
We don't have any questions, but I think we probably will get questions written to us. We'll get emails with questions in them because it's a lot to take. I mean, I think we have to review all the information.
It is a lot of information. Yeah. It is, but it's just so hard because there's so many nuances about each punctuation point, etc. So, but you know what? If people don't remember it, just by being on the class, they're going to know that Joyce said something about that and go look it up. And right. One of my hopes there's so much grammar. I could teach you guys grammar for like a year. I mean, I've been studying this forever and I still, I'm looking stuff up. So there's so much I could teach you, and I'm just trying to get a lot into your head, but more so that there's a rule. If you don't memorize the rule or what something's called, it doesn't matter. You'll go, Joyce said something about that, and then you'll know how to go and look it up, and you won't be intimidated when they give you big long words, because you'll be able to see how to break them down and to understand what a sentence says. But otherwise, you're lost. You won't be able to improve your writing because you don't, you'll be intimidated, or you won't bother, or won't even know there's a rule. So here we go. So a colon is used to indicate a forthcoming expansion of information or an explanation, i.e. the words following a colon explain or expand upon the words before a colon. So everybody knows what a colon is. It's that one little dot floating over the other. So here's an example of how I use a colon. So my silly cat has two annoying habits, whining and laughing hysterically. Here's another example. I've decided on a nickname for my feline friend, semicolon, silly cat. So it's more information. So what follows the colon is it's just adding more information to what I've already said before the colon. That's how a colon basically works. So there's some rules with colons. So you generally capitalize the first word if two or more complete sentences follow a colon, which I'm going to go into in more detail in a minute. You generally capitalize the first word of a quotation. Obviously, it's a quotation, so we generally capitalize the first word in the sentence. You don't capitalize the first word in a list that follows a colon. So we're going to go through that slower. So here we go. Capitalize the first word if two or more complete sentences follow a colon. So that N looks smaller than the rest. So Mary's pet peeves are ironic. She abhors gossip. When everyone knows something that she doesn't, she gets annoyed. So that's ironic, right? Doesn't want to hear what's going on, but gets mad if she doesn't. So, so you can see there that there's two complete sentences following the colon. So both are capitalized. Just a rule. Don't remember it, you can look it up later. So you capitalize the first word of a quotation that follows a colon. So here's using a colon to give a quote. So here's Will Rogers said, if there are no dogs in heaven, then when I die, I want to go where they went. It's a pretty fun quote that we always talk about in our family. So, so there's silly dogs thinking Will Rogers was an eloquent writer and an astute man. He was an American cowboy. He was a vaudeville performer and a humorist and columnist, etc. So smart man. Okay, Mark Twain said, when a man loves cats, I'm his friend and comrade without further introduction. So again, we just have another quotation. That's all this is for. And Silly Cat really likes this one. And Grammar Dog's trying to figure out why Silly Cat thinks it's so funny. So she's using an interrobang. So you capitalize the first word of a quotation that follows a colon. So you can see that there, pretty obvious. And here's you don't capitalize the first word in a list that follows a colon. So here we go. During the performance, use of the following electronic equipment is prohibited: cell phones, cameras, camcorders, and audio recording devices. See how the capital C, or see how the capital C, see how the C in cell phone is not capitalized. 3 rules about capitalization following commas. Now we get to get confusing. Don't worry, guys, our lesson's almost finished. So you might find the following perplexing, because I know there's a lot about grammar that I find perplexing. So we're often making our own decisions because, you know, the style books differ in their information that they give out. So the Associated Press style book recommends always capitalizing the first word in a complete sentence following a colon. And the Chicago Manual advises against it. So if you look down at the examples, Associated Press would tell you to do this: dating warning, colon, be wary of suitors who condone white lies. And then you would see the Chicago Manual of Style would tell you dating warning, use colon, use a small b, be wary of suitors who condone white lies. So a little bit confusing. So if you're working for a newspaper or someone wants you to edit using a particular manual, you're obviously going to follow that manual. But sometimes it's just up to us. So my recommendation is that you let the content and intent of your complete sentence dictate whether you capitalize the first word in a single sentence following a colon. So here we got dating warning, small b, dating warning, big B. So a little bit capitalizing the word B gives us a wee bit of urgency to the warning. But, you know, it's not a big deal. Choose which way you want to do it. But well, you don't even have to be consistent throughout your whole chapter, because different times you might want to think capitalize it, different times you might not want to. So we're about to study my favorite punctuation mark, which is the M dash. Everybody knows this is my favorite punctuation dance mark, and now you do too. So an M dash, that's it there, that little long dash, can be used in place of a colon, a semicolon, or a comma. And double M dashes, place one on either end of a word, phrase, or clause, can be used to replace parentheses, which are really just brackets. So let's take a closer look. Okay, first of all, let's compare the width or the length. So you see lengthwise, the hyphen is the shortest of the 3. The N dash is slightly larger than a hyphen, and an M dash is the longest, and they all have 3 different functions. So here we go. You probably didn't know this at all, even if you took grammar in up to grade 12, maybe even in university, you wouldn't necessarily know this. So a hyphen is used to join compound words, to separate syllables of a word, and to indicate the continuation of a word separated by a line break, like in a dictionary or in a book or whatever, not a dictionary, in a book, and to hyphenate names. So there you go. So here's a compound word example. She was wearing a silver gray sweater. And there's a reason we would hyphenate that, which I'll teach in another lesson. Separating syllables example, pronunciation here for conundrum. So you can see where they've used a little hyphen for that. And a line break example. So there's conundrum, separate it. You see this all the time in books, little hyphen, and then the rest of the word that would be on the next line. And here's a hyphenated name example. So here's Sir Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill. So he's got 2 last names now. But before he died. And so they're hyphenated. Here's an end dash. An end dash, remember, is just a little bit longer, but it's longer than a dash or longer than a hyphen. So an end dash is used to connect values in a range. So it usually replaces the word to. So if you look at the examples, the Second World War lasted a few months shy of 6 years. And then in brackets, I've got the date. So 1939 to 1945. So you see the end dash, EN, is just a little bit longer than a hyphen. Time, this would be of an event, for instance, 1:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. That's actually the proper way to write it. It's never the way I write it, but it is the proper way to write it, what you're seeing right there, without any breaks on either side of dashes. Please refer to page 44 to 56. In Super Bowl 2016, Denver Broncos beat California Panthers 24-10. So there's some examples of using the end dash. And here's my favorite, the M dash. So an M dash can be used in place of a comma and
colon.
And it can also be used in place of commas or brackets to set off elements in a sentence. So that doesn't make a lot sense when I say it, but it does when I say it, showing the example. So it was while shopping for eggs, bought milk, that I realized they needed a vacation. So I've just thrown in some information because I'm having kind of fun with my sentence. I want them to know that I left with milk, but I could still just write it was while shopping for eggs that I realized I needed a vacation, except for they wouldn't really, realize how confused I was yet, although I could tell them in another sentence. So it's time for a riddle. What do the founders of Middle Sister Wine, okay, I can't help it, and an M dash have in common? Anybody want to guess? No, Patricia?
No.
Okay. They both love drama. There's this middle sister wine called Drama Queen. They really do love drama. They really are middle sisters who own that company. So as I'm a middle littermate, I'm speaking for Grammar Dog. I find the Drama Queen insinuation a bit offensive. Still, I chuckled when I read this label, so I thought this one was a riot. The dentist told me I needed a crown. I was like, I know, right?
Perfect.
I know, I think that's funny. Okay, similar to a colon, an M dash can be used to indicate that the following information is related. So an M dash is more dramatic. You're getting that idea from, the fact that I keep talking about drama. So I wanted the eldest littermates to get a little bit upset too, so I had to put their joke in here too. So eldest littermates share an exasperating trait. Superciliousness, right? They think they're better. So that's an M dash there. So I'm setting up, so eldest littermate share an exasperating trait, and I'm going to tell you what it is. Could have used the colon, chose to use an M dash. I wanted to stand out. So youngest littermates have an obvious hindrance. They're runts. So if I use the colon, the reader would just go, oh yeah, they're runts, oh yeah. But when I put an M dash, they know I want them to look at that and, maybe chuckle. So, okay, so let's get back to being serious. You can see from the littermate's example that the information following an M dash stands out. It's dramatic. So this is where I wrote a story. Now, this is actually telling on myself. This is kind of funny, except for the part where I bark and run circles. I didn't do that. So in truth, I sometimes welcome a bit of drama, especially when I want to grab a reader's attention mid-sentence, which is one of the reasons I love the M dash. So similar to, but more conspicuous than parentheses or brackets, a pair of M dashes can be used to add extraneous or information that's not important, just something I want to put in there for fun or whatever, information to a sentence. So here's an example. So here's an, I learned about Middle Sister wines. So this is what I'm having fun with, because this is me. I like to have fun with my writing. So I learned about Middle Sister wines. So M dash, opened the fridge, spotted the near empty bottle, read the label, felt insulted when visiting family. So I could have just written, I learned about Middle Sister's wines when visiting family. But for me, it was more fun to kind of, how did I discover it? We opened the fridge, spotted the near empty bottle, read the label, felt insulted. So assuming one of my three littermates was deliberately goading me, I asked who bought it. None fessed up. I started barking and running circles around them. They smirked. So she is a drama queen, right? This dog, not me, just in case anybody's wondering. So and rather than using brackets, what I've used is 2 em dashes to set that whole, they're just a bunch of phrases. They're not even complete sentence. Open the fridge. Well, I guess it was. Spotted the near. I guess they're complete sentences, sort of. Nope, there aren't because there's no noun. So open the fridge, spotted the near empty bottle, read the label, felt insulted. There's nouns. I mean, there's no subject performing the action, so they're phrases. When visiting family. So it's down below. You can see I've put with the brackets around them that we learned about, or the parentheses around them that we learned about last lesson. So I could have put the same information that I put in that sentence, encased in the em dashes with brackets. So, but I think that the em dashes really make it stand out. For me, they say to my reader, or I'm trying to say to my reader, hey, read this. I think it's funny, or whatever, or dramatic, or whatever it is I'm trying to get across. So, okay, so here's some nuances, usage, and creation of an em dash. So the em dash is mostly used in informal writing. When composing business correspondence or university's papers, it's best to use parentheses, commas, semicolons, and colons. Similar to exclamation point, the em dash should be used sparingly, no more than once per page, because it just loses its effect if you use it too often, just like the exclamation point. And there should be no space before or after an em dash. So if you notice when I was doing that, I'm just going to go back one slide with my open the fridge. See, there's no spaces in there after wines and open the fridge, and also after insulted and with when, no spaces. Okay, so where do we go? Oh, I went the wrong way. Nothing new there. So most keyboards do not have an em dash, and there's 2 ways to create an em dash using your keyboard. So if you just type in a word, strike the hyphen key twice, you know where the hyphen key is there at the top of your keyboard, and then hit enter just once, hit the enter key once, it will turn the 2 little hyphens into an em dash. Also, if you just type a word, strike the hyphen key twice and resume typing and don't put a space, like so if you go, word hyphen word, it'll turn the double hyphens into em dash. And you can also find it under symbols. Here we go. So same thing, go to your general punctuation and symbols, and you click on the em dash, and next to that little blue box, to the left of it is the N-E-N dash, the N dash, which is shorter. And that's about the only place you're going to find those. There's other ways to create them too, but I can only teach so much at a time. So you can take your thinking cap off. Our grammar lesson is finished. And here's why the em dash is my favorite punctuation mark. When used discriminately, it's a powerful writing tool, which I think you've seen throughout the lesson. So mark your calendar. Webinars are every other Tuesday, and our next one is Tuesday, March the 1st. I put this little shamrock guy up there because, it's March and all that kind of thing. And so it'll be the 1st, and this is what we'll be covering. So we're going to look at the interjection and the conjunction. So the interjection is a piece of cake. We're going to get through that. We're going to blow through that in about 2 minutes. Conjunction is going to take time, and you need to know about conjunctions. Of all the things that I've taught you so far in grammar in the 8 parts of speech, you need to understand conjunctions. So make sure you tune in for that or watch it afterwards. We'll be looking at commas next class. The comma is like, there's so many things to know about the comma. So most of the next week's going to be about the comma, but I want to have some fun. I always want to give you some inspirational authorship. So we'll also be doing a write tighter lesson. And here's kind of an example of what we'll be learning, but this is just one example. So you can see people love to be wordy. So they say things like, I'm emailing because, well, first of all, if you wrote an email, they already know that you're emailing. I wanted to let you know, well, they know that you want to let them know once you write whatever you're going to write. You don't have to write that. I don't have to write, I'm emailing because, or I wanted to let you know that the date of the conference has changed. The reason for this change is due to the fact is always because. You never write due to the fact. It's very rare that you would ever want to really do that. The reason for this change is due to the fact that there hasn't been a lot of interest and some people have other things already planned. So that big, wordy 2 sentences there really could be said the conference date has changed. You don't know it has been changed. The conference date has changed because of disinterest and scheduling conflicts. the new date, blah, blah, blah. So that's the kind of thing we're going to be learning next week too. Just a few more points. We'll be going on and on about that forever and ever. And it's back to Patricia and me. I'm hoping.
Yep, you're there.
I'm there. I just couldn't see myself. I was still looking at the PowerPoint. So there was a little bit too much information, right?
It was great information. It's just, and it's going to be a great place to refer to, you know, when you're doing your writing, just go back to the slides and the information that's up on the website and look at that. Yeah, it's great.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm going to go back on and just say good night to everybody. So, okay, am I there now? I don't know. I think it's either Patricia or me. Anyways, I want to say thank you to everybody for turning into the webinar. You'll get your the webinar replay. I'm not sending you anymore. Instead, I'm sending you over to heartmindeffect.com and look under the writing materials tab, and you will find the grammar classes. And you might even want to go back and review the webinars or the writing lessons that are up there, because every time you learn something new about grammar or about punctuation or about how to tell a story, you're empowering yourself. You're writers. This is your craft. You're creators. This is your craft. The more you learn about the tools, the stronger writer you will become. So, Patricia, are you seeing any questions there?
No, just thank yous and good information. And yeah, and Maria wishes that you had been her English teacher.
Oh, Maria. Thank you, Maria.
So okay. Can we say I'm a writer?
I'm a writer. Yeah. Okay. Good night, everybody. See you in a couple weeks. Send your questions. We had a great question today. I just want to came in from Maggie, and Maggie wanted to know what you did in terms of if you read a bunch of chapters in the book. So if you read like a bunch of chapters in Heart, Mind, Wisdom, which you really should do, you would put chapter in quotation marks when you're writing about them, and the name of the books go in italics. So that has been in another lesson, but I'll bring it up again next week, or try to remember to mention that next week so people will understand that. But just if you don't know whether to put italics around, to italicize something or put quotation marks around like a movie, a newspaper, a magazine, whatever, just look it up. It's easy to find out on the internet because you know the difference. There might be a difference, so just look it up. Patricia, you want to add anything before we go away?
That's it. Good night, everyone.
Good night, you guys. See you soon.